it's not. Hi, I'm Greg Gutfeld, along with Kellyanne Conway, Jessica Tarloff, Jesse Waters, and Emily Compagno. The Five. The 10-day ceasefire between Israel and Lebanon just kicked off as President Trump tries to close in on a broader deal with Iran. So far, choking the ever-loving crap out of the Strait of Hormuz. It's proven effective, with 14 vessels turning back and none getting through. It's pretty amazing.
The blockade is amazing. It's holding up very strong, very powerfully. And I think we're making a lot of progress in that. Iran wants to make a deal, and we're dealing very nicely with them. We've got to have no nuclear weapons. If we do, that's a big factor. And they're willing to do things today that they weren't willing to do 2 months ago. We're very close to making a deal. If there's no deal, fight or resume.
Israel and Lebanon have tried to make peace before. What's going to be the difference this time?
But if Iran doesn't deal, Pete is warning that America is reloading.
We are reloading with more power than ever before, and better intelligence. Even more importantly, better intelligence than ever before to Iran's military leadership, to the KH leadership and IRGC leadership. We're watching you.
Meanwhile, the Dems are cranking up their Trump fear porn. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear fears 47 will drop a nuke just for the fame.
What concerns me is a comment that he made to his unauthorized biographer once, that he wanted to be the most famous person in the world. I worry, in his mind, he also wants to be one of the most famous people in history, and good or bad does not seem to impact him in trying to reach that. So my concern was he thought maybe one way to get there would be to be the president that actually dropped a nuclear bomb.
You know, you're not supposed to say retarded, but that is retarded. That is might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard on television. But maybe you can change that, Jesse. The story has no longer become, oh my God, he's going to send boots on the ground, as now turning into, oh my God, he's going to nuke Iran. It's like they keep having to move and shift their narrative because they get proven wrong every day.
So John Kerry, Ed Morning Joe, and Wall Street, but who's counting, all love the war, all love the blockade, say it's winding up perfectly. The ceasefire, what it did, what let us pivot from combat operations to this blockade, but also gave us a huge tactical advantage because now we can watch the Iranians dig out their mobile missile launchers. So it's given us a whole new intelligence deck that we can exploit if we choose to do so. They can't fight. They can't rearm. They can't hear. They can't see. They can't communicate. There's no command and control. They're all underground. They can't use phones. There's no internet. And they can't get paid because they can't trade. And the naval blockade is squeezing them like a python, and it's growing because now we're going after the dark fleet in international waters. And Besant is now vaporizing all of these Iranian bank accounts all across the Middle East. So this is the president's negotiating strategy. They're facing a Great Depression. And the Journal says it's going to take $250 billion to rebuild the country. And they can't rebuild because we wiped out all of their factories, their defense, their petrochemicals, their steel. Everything is gone. So they'd have to import the materials they need to rebuild, but they can't do that. And they can't pay for it anyway. So where do they stand? The offer is this. You give them sanctions relief, and you say the West will invest if you give up all of the uranium. That's the deal that's probably on the table. Now, they have three options. One option is to say no deal, and then you basically just get bridge and power plant day. It collapses the country. Probably you're looking at regime collapse and decades to rebuild, maybe even more than that. The second option is to just drag it out, which they always do. But you can't do that when you're under an embargo. Then you're looking at an economic calamity, the likes of which will probably trigger a revolution. So Beijing's not going to allow either of those options. So the only option is you take the deal. And right now you're looking at them having to make this decision in weeks, not months.
Wow. You know, Jessica, I think there is, I'm going to help you out here. That's the kind of guy I am. I think there is one hole in Jesse's argument, and that is the people that we're negotiating with are so fractious. I said yesterday, it's a prisoner's dilemma. Who is going to make the decisions? And the person that doesn't make the decision could end up being dead. How do you answer that, Jessica, Miss Smarty Pants, and your sparkly glasses?
They are sparkly today, and I'm still hopeful for a sparkly deal to come out of this. They are very fractious on their side, of course, and suspicion of, who might be compromised, who's going to get whacked next. They do know that at least the Israelis have eyes on them absolutely everywhere.
Oh,
so
Jews.
We do love to spy. Oh, sorry, Emily, was the casual anti-Semitism strange?
No.
Yeah,
I was just pointing out that you pointed it out.
Yes, the Israelis are very good at knowing where you are, which is how they took out the Ayatollah brunch club, right?
Interesting.
So it's going to be one of those days. Anyway, I'm curious about, in Jesse's 3 scenarios, the amount of time that Iran thinks that they can wait it out, because they are obviously on the defensive here. The Chinese, Secretary Hegseth said that the Chinese spoke to President Trump, said we're not going to send weapons in and help them out there. But there is reporting that they obviously have been helping up until this point and even given spy technology to them so that they can see where we are. So I'm curious about the Chinese element of it and then how long they can wait. Reuters was reporting that Iran can withstand a complete halt in oil exports for up to 2 months, which is longer than I thought. So they're losing $500 million a day. But if they can make it another 8 weeks or something like that in terms, why are you laughing?
8 weeks, then what?
I don't know. Even when I'm being 98% agreeable, there's still a problem. So I just
margin of error.
Forget it. I'm more excited about the B block anyway. So.
All right. Kellyanne, I think the story has shifted so much that it's kind of hard to find the negatives. And Jessica, to her credit, wasn't really trying that hard.
Others are trying hard. But I think that the voices of Trump's critics and naysayers have been so discredited, so diminished this time. They accuse him of not having a plan. They want to impeach him for bombing Iran. That worked. They're angry about the blockade. That's working. The S&P showed we're at a turning point just yesterday. It exploded. And that's before we even have a solid peace agreement. That's just with a naval blockade. No boots on the ground, all critics and naysayers. Just our guys in the waters doing what we have to do to keep Iran at bay. I don't understand, Greg, why people can't be at least pro-America. If they can't be anti-Iran in the media or in the Democratic Party, they should at least be pro-America here and say, Donald Trump knew that if he were the next president to say, I'm going to pass on to the next president Iran's nuclear capability, it would be too late. Then it's too late. They were going the way of North Korea. Unlimited drone capacity, ballistic missile capacity, and worse, probably treating their people exactly the same. And he's a guy who just refuses to give in to what I think is one of our greatest epidemics, which is looking the other way. He won't do it. But this is working. And President Trump, he's got this great way of telling us first time this, first time that. He is a historic figure, but he's making history in this way. First president to deal with this really in a serious way since 1979. But today he even said, look, Israel and Lebanon haven't met seriously here at the White House and elsewhere since 1983. He wants to make that happen. So I think people are seeing that this was a big turning point. I wanted to address Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky. Here's a guy who is seen as different than the Looney Tunes that are running the Democratic Party currently, and he just acted like the rest of them. Maybe he's not pulling a Swalwell, but he's pulling rabid left-wing nonsense. Trump's bombing them to be the most famous person in the world. Trump is the most famous person in the world, and you're the governor of Kentucky who's talking about Trump. And this, I think Andy Beshear showed the problem that the Democrats have with Iran. They throw so much spaghetti at the wall with Trump. First, we'll call him a madman that needs to be impeached. Then we'll say that he's chickening out because he dare have a ceasefire. Then the ceasefire and blockade are working, so we'll say he actually doesn't have a plan in the Strait of Hormuz. This President Trump, because he has engaged the Gulf state countries, because he's the guy who gave us the Abraham Accords, direct foreign investment from all these countries in the first term and especially in the second term, he's the one that's able to do this in a way to put all the pieces together. This is not just about Iran, it's about the entire region. We're engaging the region and we're enraging the terrorists.
What say you, Emily?
Yes, so you talked about the governor as saying, oh my gosh, he's going to nuke the Middle East to try to be famous. Where was he and where were all of them why don't they say, oh my gosh, this regime murdered 30,000 people in the last 2 years alone? Oh my gosh, they just hung a 19-year-old. Oh my gosh, they stoned to death young women for showing a strand of hair. Why is the outrage and the clutching pearls happening for a hypothetical about the commander-in-chief that finally dared to do something about a regime that has been committing war crimes and atrocities, the things they're accusing our president of this entire time? And on to the remember about Iran, all they care about is survival, not resolution. So as we negotiate with them, we are negotiating with terrorists. That's a far different beast than sitting across the table from a rational, normal actor. And they are not prioritizing the population. The economic destruction happening, the depression happening, they don't care. They will not prioritize the people because they are prioritizing control. So as long as there are those same actors as decision makers there in that Islamic Republic, we are only going to see a simmering and getting through to the other side. And when we lift sanctions, historically, we've seen not a containment, not a relaxation. We see them spin out. So it's incumbent upon all of our allies, and I hope that this is the lesson for the globe, that everyone continues that pressure on them, whatever that looks like, whatever happens at the end of those 8 weeks. I'm curious about that too. But we need our friends on board now, because that's the only way to make sure that that beast stays in the bottle.
Well, Europe will run out of airline fuel in 6 weeks, which is approximately 7 weeks after they ran out of courage.
Nice.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.